Welcome, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us on this Friday, as we are so excited to time travel with the Audio-Animatronics guru himself, Mr. Garner Holt. So stay tuned. We'll get started right at the top of the hour. Welcome to those who are just joining us for our 21st journey through time and space with Mr. Garner Holt today. We will get started right at 12 o'clock.
Oh my God, it does.
Again, thank you guys for joining us today on Friday, the 17th. We will get started momentarily with Mr. Garner Holt. Thanks so much for joining us. That's my favorite. Again, thank you guys for joining us today. We will get started right at the top of the hour with Garner Holt. Thank you guys for joining us today on our 21st episode of the Spirit of the Time Zoomcast. We are joined with Garner Holt today, very excited, and we will get started right at the top of the hour. Welcome to Zeitgeist Design and Production. I'm Becky Kiefer, Studio Director. Time travel is the ultimate immersive experience. VR, AR, and the metaverse pale in comparison to the notion of sailing across the seas of time. Here in the Zeitgeist Creative Studio, aka R&J's Time Travel Emporium, imagination rules and time is always of the essence. This is where location-based entertainers Ryan Harmon and Jolene Cicero study the past and spend the present envisioning the future of UXIRL, user experiences in real life. The Spirit of the Time Zoomcast offers a sneak peek behind the themes. Each month, we move you without a ride system, inviting one incredibly talented and influential colleague aboard our time machine. We set the controls for milestone moments in that person's career and attempt to unravel the mystery of what makes a guest experience timely yet timeless. And because we're live, you can type questions into the chat box and our passenger will answer them off the record after the hour. Climbing aboard our time machine today is a man who knew he wanted to create immersive experiences from a very young age, and through hard work and perseverance in his teens and 20s, soon became the world's leading manufacturer of audio-animatronics, Mr. Garner Holt. If you've seen any walking, talking, singing, dancing, or flying robotic characters in the last half century anywhere in the world, there's a very good chance it was designed and built by Garner Holt and his team in Redlands, California. It's now my pleasure to introduce our time machine pilots, Zeitgeist President and Chief Creative Officer, Ryan Harmon, and Zeitgeist Executive Vice President and Chief Art Director, Jolene Cicero, along with a man who, like his animatronics, was programmed for success and astonishment, Mr. Garner Holt.
From 1963.
Oh man.
You see the original Tiki room. To record the music apart. That's
I had my cell phone. Nobody could see that in 1963.
because I think I saw my 7-year-old.
This time continue.
The animatronics enthralled me as a kid, still do today. It was a big part of my career, and a big part was working with this incredible man who's sitting here across from us, Garner Holt, and we got a lot to talk about because he has done a lot. So let's set the controls for.
Let's go for August 1972. And we are, looks like in the Haunted Mansion at Disneyland, and there's 12-year-old Garner. And I think you're inspired, Garner. Tell us about this.
Well, thank you for having me. I'm, the Haunted Mansion was the inspiration that I had going to Disneyland with my parents. They had a whole different career in mind for me, but they were talked into me to take me to Disneyland and, or by me to go to Disneyland one day. And I saw the Haunted Mansion, and that's what I had heard about this place that I liked haunted houses and I liked all the movie monsters and things. So they took me to this fantastic place, and I literally told them on the way home in the car that that's what I wanted to do the rest of my life, is build things for the Haunted Mansion and build things that I saw at Disneyland. And I think that's probably one of the only things I've thought about ever since.
Yeah, that's amazing, because so many people have that moment where they see something, they're inspired and say, that's what I'm going to do the rest of my life. But you did it.
Yeah, it's amazing. Starting at 12 years old. I mean, I know people in their 30s who still don't know what they're going to do. That was amazing. So tell us, how did you get started? Did you do like things in your local mall or in your backyard, or what'd you do?
Well, so it all started with, actually, I like to say I was a fan of the movie monsters, on TV, and Frankenstein, all of that. And I basically set up a little shack in my backyard. I tried a number of different things that were kind of entertainment related. I had a little petting zoo, and I had a reptile museum, and I had a couple other things. And a lot of things that I did were kind of endangered the kids in the neighborhood. I had a Skyway bucket that I pulled across the yard between two phone posts and a cable, and my parents came home one day decided that I was going to kill the neighborhood kids. So they let me put up a little shack in the backyard. It was my little haunted house, and it kind of took off from there. We had I had a newspaper article that was done that I tried to get purchase an article, and they wouldn't. They wouldn't sell me an article. So I had a fellow from the newspaper come out and see the haunted house, and there was an article done, and 400 people showed up one Halloween night.
Wow.
And well, that led to this. So what you're seeing on the screen now was in my junior high school. I got a call slip to go to the Central City Mall promotion director, and they asked about doing a haunted house for them. So with about $400 of seed money that I borrowed, half from my parents and some of the other money I scraped up, I bought an old burned out construction trailer and spent a whole year turning it into Garner Holt's Haunted House of Mystery. And that's what you see here.
Oh, cool.
And that ran for about 4 years in the mall, and other malls heard about the haunted house, and they wanted a haunted house for like the Mall of Orange and the Orange, fairground, excuse me, fairgrounds out here at the Orange Show in San Bernardino. So ended up doing a bunch of haunted houses in the very beginning.
Wow. And tell us about your severed hand. What is this Garner's famous severed hand?
Well, so, when I was, when I first started Garner Holt Productions, and I moved out of the garage, started the company in the garage, basically, and I outgrew the garage, and then I moved into a small building. I hate that picture because an old girlfriend talked me into a perm, and it really sucks, but so anyhow, yeah, I had to keep going. So I went to the beach with some friends one day, and I just threw a hand in the car, and we buried it in the sand, and the police came and everything. That we made a big deal about it, and hid in the bushes while people discovered it sticking out of the sand. So I thought, wow, there's really something here. So I started selling those all over the world to keep the lights on. And this was before, everybody does it now. There's a million of them doing it now, but I sold that in a Fangoria magazine. I was the only one selling rubber hands back then. So people were putting them in their cars, in their trunk, hanging out of their trunk, and getting on the news and stuff. And it was really kind of exciting for me at the time.
Wow.
They kept the lights on in the building,
Yeah, that's so cool.
Rubber. Wait, do you still have any sitting around anywhere? Do you have like the first rubber hand? And
oh yeah, there's a couple up in my archive room.
Oh, cool. Wow. So I started going to IAPA around 92 or so, and I will always remember your booth because you always had the unicyclist, Wendell the unicyclist, riding on a cable above your booth, and it was there for decades. I don't even know how it was done. tell us about Wendell.
Well, back in the beginning, so when I was kind of a one-man company at the time, I didn't have any money to have employees, so I had friends come over and help me a night, for working for pizza. So let me tell you a funny story about that picture right there. See those big blue cabinets in the back?
Yeah.
I always saw pictures of Disney. They always had like computer cabinets in the back, and I always thought that was really impressive, So I bought those cabinets, both of them, for $10 at the swap meet. And I put them in my picture because I just wanted the picture to look like I had computer technology and I had big computers running the animation, but those were just empty cabinets. That's what you had to do back in the day, but anyhow, I built Wendell because I needed something to show what I could do. And everybody else had a singing bear or something. And I wanted to do something really spectacular. So he was kind of like a mechanical magic trick, looked like he was riding a unicycle, no visible means of support.
Yeah.
And I sculpted that head. I did everything on him except for the costume because that's the only thing I never taught myself to do was to sew, because I always had somebody that could sew for me and make a costume. But I had to do everything at the time. I was a sole operator at the time.
Yeah. Wow.
So that brings up a big question for me, and even through our previous discussions, I never thought of bringing it up. Are you 100% self-taught? Or did you ever, any kind of classes, or everything was out of books and just studying?
Well, no, I pretty much taught myself everything. I tested out of high school in my junior year, so I skipped my senior year and I never went back to school of any kind. I did go to Valley College out here at a machine shop, so I talked them into letting me take a machine shop course so I could build a lot of my mechanical parts for my Uncle Sam, and my first animated figure that I did before Wendell. And so I did do some little bit of machine shop in that, but I ended up getting my own machines, and I was pretty much self-taught on everything, like I said, except for sewing.
Right. And wasn't there a period around this time, or maybe a little earlier, when some of the Imagineers, actually you got their attention and they came out and met with you?
Well, before Wendell, I had Uncle Sam, the figure I did for the bicentennial, and I was just, I mean, he was just built out of hinges and gate posts and some cylinders that I
Oh,
figured out how to
16.
use. And yeah, that was my Uncle Sam. So I was 15 or so when I built that. Then the next version of him, I built a more elaborate version of him that was a lot better. And yeah, that's in my parents' garage there.
Wow.
That was the metal that I used for that character, actually some of it is fence post parts that I sawed off the back of my dad's fence back where his horses were in the backyard.
Wow.
But anyhow, yeah, some friends from I had an AV club in my high school, and they said, they said, well, why don't you film Sam? And so I hung up a sheet behind him in the garage, and I took a film of him and I sent it to Imagineering, and I never thought I'd hear from him in a million years. But a fellow there by the name of Wathel Rogers, who was kind of one of the fathers of animatronics, came out, and Wayne Jackson, they both came out said they wanted to see Uncle Sam in the garage. And so when they were out there seeing it, my mom, would give him milk and cookies in the living room, and and I took him out in the garage, showed him Uncle Sam. And after I showed him my workshop, I said, well, since you guys toured my workshop, could I tour your workshop? So that led to a day-long tour of Mapo and WED. And that started the relationship I had with Imagineering.
Wow. So let's go now to 1993. And there was all this hype that Las Vegas is going to be the family destination, and MGM Grand is going to build a new Disneyland right on the strip. And you were there for MGM Adventure Park, I believe it was called.
Yeah, that was an interesting time. So that's I think one of the ways I was able to get their attention was with Wendell. I finagled my way in through a couple different avenues to see Fred Benninger, who was the head of the MGM project. I tried going in the front door and that didn't work, but I ended up getting in there, and I only had a few minutes to show him Wendell, the tape of Wendell, and through Dual Corporation and some others, I basically was able to convince them that I could do the animatronics for the largest ride in the park, and effects and everything, and show action equipment. And I had never worked in a theme park, and I'd never built anything before for anybody in that business, and I had no employees at the time, and I just had myself in a shop, so I had to muster up all of that. And in 6 months I had to build the largest ride of in that park of all the animatronics, everything. And we pulled it off. I hired a bunch of my friends, and it wasn't easy, but we did it.
Wow. I imagine at this point, you're no longer in your parents' garage.
No, the conference room I'm sitting in right now is bigger than my parents' garage.
Yeah, his office is amazing.
Yeah, that's from MGM. That's the pumping machine. That's the sheriff in the flooded bank. That was a character we did out on the state line. So after we did MGM, I'd asked Mr. Benninger, who is chairman of the board of MGM, if he asked me if he could do anything for me. I said, would you tell your friends? So a lot of casino owners started calling me. I did that for State Line at Gary Prim out there on State Line.
Yeah, the log ride. I read that.
Yeah, we started there, and then that led to Knott's Berry Farm, and I mean, it just started going all over. I even did some I even did a musical show in Vegas, so
Wow.
it was this was the raft ride there in Vegas. This is pretty cool.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah.
I,
But you,
I remember touring that.
I read, yeah.
When first, and I was ambitious and surprised that it didn't last longer.
Too
But
hot.
yeah,
It's way too hot.
it's Vegas. Yeah.
So
Well,
but
they determined that square footage in Vegas made more money with slots on it than it did with theme park on it.
Yeah.
So, but your greatest claim to fame, Garner, at that era had to have been one of my favorite places at the time, Chuck E. Cheese Pizza Time Theater.
Yeah, so Chucky came to me and a bunch of other animatronic companies that existed at the time and wanted to have us all compete to do a new version of a Chuck E. Cheese. And so I got my group together, we developed the character, sculpted it and everything else. And we won the competition in a sense. And they said, okay, you're going to build. We ended up building over 550 Chuck E. Cheese shows worldwide.
There's only one.
Wow. Wow.
We built them like that, 30 at a time. And
Gee. Jesus.
so
Wow.
that was Chuck E. Cheese. So that really got me into the business big time.
Yeah.
Was building those. That was called Studio C. That replaced the original 5-character band. They wanted one character that had a lot of moves, kind of Disney level kind of character.
Yeah.
So
Wow.
Wow.
So around this time, can you explain what was happening with Disney's famous Mapo? Because I was at Imagineering 87 and 92 originally, and you could walk through the building, all the older guys in their white smocks with all their machines. And soon after that, it was office space. Like they were gone.
Well, they just
Yeah.
moved another building, but
Did
it's much.
Yeah. Yeah, but around this time, Haunted Mansion Holiday is happening. We're in like 2001 now. So can you explain what happened there?
well, I think it's not really any secret. I know how it worked. I mean, people in the industry. I mean, it basically. So at that point, I had gotten my foot into Disney. I was doing some parade float characters and things like that. Hercules Parade, the Parade of Dreams. We did a whole bunch of figures there. Yeah, that was one of the first was philosophies there.
Oh, cool.
And so I know that Steve Davidson and a couple others that designed the mansion overlay. I'd heard later that they basically took the idea from Disneyland Entertainment to Imagineering and said, build this attraction. And I think that the price tag from Imagineering was quite high. And I think they were a little dismayed at that. And they really wanted to build the thing. And somebody at the table said, well, what about that Garner guy that does the parade float characters? What about having them do something like that? So they came to me and, we were considerably better priced and I really wanted to do it. That was the Haunted Mansion inspired me as a kid. I dreamed about working in, and now they're asking me to fill it up with brand new animatronics and Jack Skellington and a bunch of other stuff in there, and Oogie Boogie and that came later, but the vampire teddies and man-eating plants and all that stuff. And so landed the job, did that, was a huge success. Just like a lot of shows. Oh, that's building the plants in the shop. A lot of that's the Christmas tree we built. Yeah. And there's the sets that we did later for the mirror scene.
Oh yeah.
There's Pumpkin Mountain.
Wow.
Garner, this was where I first started working with you, because after you did the Disneyland Anaheim version, we were going to do a version in Tokyo. And so it was just a given, because for the economic reasons that we were going to go with Garner. So we did, and it was great, huge success. Next project we were working on in Tokyo was the Monsters Inc. Ride and Go Seek. And again, same thing. And now I'm the executive in charge of that project. I get the first sheet back with the numbers for how much the project's going to cost. And then of course we talk to our partners in OLC and this is crazy. And then I remember a group of us sitting there going, well, heck, we just did the Haunted Mansion and the figures were X amount each. You know, we can do, and because first, of course, you go through the wailing and gnashing of teeth where we're going to have to cut more than half of the characters in order to make the budget. And that show is just so rich.
Oh, yeah.
All those characters.
Yeah.
So the decision was made, let's go with Garner.
Or we've got to be your tagline. Go with Garner.
Yeah, well, yeah, that was a great pleasure to do that show. We worked on Monsters out here at DCA, worked on that show. That subsequently led to us doing 4 Buzz Lightyear attractions, and did Nemo out of the park here. We, that branched out into a lot of park sustainment where we were able to put figures in the Jungle Cruises and, build tiki birds, and it just went every direction. We were did Mystic Manor figures in Hong Kong, and started working in Space Mountain on meteors, and got to do Small World overlay characters, and it just went like every direction, and we were really proud to do it, because that was my dream of my lifetime, to work in the Disney parks. And didn't get to do it as an Imagineer, but I'm really glad it didn't happen that way. That was my dream when I was younger, and now we're still building things for the parks and having a great time doing it.
Yeah.
That's interesting. You said that, Garner, about being an Imagineer. Was there ever? Obviously, I'm sure there were moments where that was an aspiration, but I mean, you always kind of did your own thing. Did they ever try to seduce you into becoming part of the organization?
Yeah, they did. And professional staffing talked with me for months and months. They would come out to my haunted houses. They'd come out and see all my stuff. They just insisted that if I was going to work there and they were going to hire me, that I needed to just drop the idea of it at the time and go to college, because they said, we know that you're, for you to get anywhere in the company, you'd have to have some form of degree. And they knew that I had, I mean, basically I didn't even finish high school. I mean, I tested out my junior year. So, and they just kind of didn't know what to do with me. And they said that, and I was depressed for about 6 months, because I figured that my life was over, because I wanted to be an Imagineer. And I thought that that was the end. And then I told my parents, I said, I'm going to try to start my company and make it work. And if I can, I will. And if not, I'll wrap the whole thing up, go back to school, and try to go to work for Disney.
Yeah. Wow. So we're now in 2009, and it looks like you're building one of the biggest animatronics you've ever built, the dragon for Fantasmic. Tell us about this, and were there issues with it, or
well, the biggest before that was Ursula the Sea Witch for Tokyo Disney Sea. That was 67 feet. That thing, yeah, that was 67 feet long and 27 tons. And that head came out actually over the audience. That was not only one of Disney's largest animatronic figures. That's it in the show. That was not only one of the largest animated figures that Disney had, it was also one of the first electric figures. We used electric actuators that were from flight simulators on that thing, and it flew out over the audience, and it was really massive, and it actually used railroad track as the rails for it. So I mean, it was a massive character, and it was a scary one, but I think nobody wanted to build it because it was so scary, and then they kind of all shrugged their shoulders and said, what about Garner? So I said, heck yeah.
Go with Garner.
Wow. So Garner, your the electric versus hydraulic, your early figures, were they electric, or were you playing with hydraulics even with your early stuff?
We did a lot of hydraulic and pneumatic, and but we were some of the, like I said, the first to introduce that, and of course that was in Tokyo Disney Sea. But one of the parade characters of Mike Wazowski at Disneyland was one of the first electric figures they had at the Disneyland park, and yeah, that's him. And so we kind of helped I don't know if we didn't help. We basically contributed to going down the electric path that everybody's using now.
Yeah, I remember at that transition point, the discussions around the subtleties that you could get out of the hydraulics versus the electronics. But I mean, that quickly changed.
Yeah, it's electric has developed better and better and better over the years, and it's gotten to the point where it's really and everybody wanted to get rid of the hydraulic infrastructure because it's so not green anymore. You don't want a bunch of buildings full of oil,
Yeah. So wait, going back to the dragon though, tell us about this giant dragon that's hidden in Tom Sawyer's Island. And I mean, that was
an amazing structure. We had to build an elevator for it that lifts it out of the pit, and the dragon is actually telescopes into itself and breathes fire. And that was quite we just built a new skin for it just the other day. But
oh wow,
there's some interesting pictures I haven't seen in a while. Yeah, that was out in our yard. We had to build it out in the yard because it was so big it wouldn't fit in the building.
Wow.
But that was our flame test. So we put you can't see it there, but we had a rack with wieners and marshmallows on it, and they all toasted to a crisp. It didn't work. So
that's awesome.
Yeah, Garner, this is one of those examples where when art is so perfect, people take it for granted. Like watching a great dancer, or watching a great piece of
it looks easy.
Yeah, it makes it look easy. And listening to you here describe it, we had to build an elevator and had a telescope. But that moment when he comes out is pure magic.
Yeah.
And I love what you said when we were talking prior about you kind of summed up what you do as it's a magic trick. You said taking plastic and metals and technology to create the illusion of life.
Yeah.
And that's really that idea of a magic trick, because with a magician, it just happens right before your eyes and you don't question it. And that's, I think, is the true genius of what you do, that you people go through these rides, or they see these shows, and there's this incredible thing that it's alive. It's really, I'm believing this thing that I'm seeing with my eyes is alive in front of me, where it's all this technology behind it to that moment.
Yeah.
So when I was a kid, a teenager, I loved the Lincoln show at Disneyland, and I was fascinated by the Lincoln show, and I was fascinated by Mr. Lincoln, and I spent months watching him over and over again. And after a while, I stopped watching him, and I turned around and I would start watching the audience, and I spent probably as much time watching people watch him and their reactions, and I would see little old ladies sit there and cry, because they're listening to the president's words. And I'm thinking to myself, this is a plastic and mechanical machine, and look at how it's able to bring these emotions out of people. It's like it's almost like they're seeing the real president. We had a figure, I know you're gonna zoom ahead in the future and talk about Grogu in a little bit, but we had a Grogu at Comic-Con, and that we did, and some girls came up to it. There was a big huge line, and some girls came up, and they were hysterical. They were crying and hysterical, and they reached out and touched his hand, and they're saying, this is the real thing, this is the real Grogu. And it's like they were meeting a celebrity from the movie, and they were. And I'm like, I'm really fascinated in how people can look at a piece of rubber and and acrylic eyes, and they can react like that. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, it's the suspension of disbelief. It was, going all the way back to Walt, and what he did with drawings. It was the same thing. He understood the human condition and was able to imbue these drawings with this illusion of life, which he then moved to when his
it's just like crying when you're watching Bambi, it's and you're seeing something on a piece of paper, it's amazing, and that's just fascinating to me.
Yeah. Wow. So over the last 10 years or so, you won a Lifetime Achievement Award with the TEA, and you've done a bunch of stuff for Universal. It sounds like things all over the world. What were kind of some of the oddest clients that you've had and some of the strangest things you've built?
We've had a lot of clients come to us with odd things that we didn't build.
Oh.
There's been some real interesting things there, but that weren't really proper. But we've had some real interesting clients. We've had some celebrity clients and various things of that nature. Back when Michael Jackson was alive, or way before he passed, he came to us and said, we're going to build a ranch called Neverland out in San Ynez Valley. And, I want Indians on the train ride, and I want pirates, and I want birds and things like that. So we built a whole bunch of stuff for him. In fact, I think the people can see a painting of not painting, a photograph.
Oh, yeah.
Indian
Yeah.
back behind. I mean, that was his Indian chief that was out on his train ride.
Oh, wow.
Wow.
And so we've had, we have probably the private clients, some of the celebrities and people that have had things that are most unusual. We have a fellow that has a home out in Malibu that, from the time you go to his front door and knock on his door, and the wall rumbles and breaks open, and the wolf attacks you, and held back by chains and snarling and drooling, and you go into his house and there's all kinds of crazy stuff, aliens that jump out of the couch and all of that stuff. I mean, we've had some really fun stuff. It's been, oh, there's the wolf right there. Yeah, that's that breaks out of the wall right next to the front door. So at the very beginning, he used to order pizza just so he could attack the pizza guys with it.
I was saying, I'm just before Amazon delivery guy.
That's awesome. Wow. Super cool.
You've got an interesting smattering of pictures there. I guess Bill provided you with a bunch of good stuff.
So what do you think the future of animatronics is? We've all seen the flying Spider-Man and the really cool Grogu that's at Galaxy's Edge. And where do you think things are going with battery power or new technologies?
Well, we're working on more, autonomous figures and things like that. We've got some real cool things here that we're tinkering with in R&D. And then we also have, I just like you refer to the magic trick of it all. It's kind of, the illusion of life, creating something that, I look forward to the day that you can walk in our shop and, the secretary greets you at the receptionist greets you, and you sign in, and she tells you that, the people will be with you shortly. And then, I might come out into the lobby and explain to you that the receptionist isn't a real human, and you didn't know that. That would be, that would be really cool to be able to do it so well that, you could really kind of, be kind of blow somebody away in that sense. We have, there's so many things that are being experimented with and dealt with, with technology, with the RFID and all that kind of stuff. I mean, you can imagine right now you go on a Pirates of the Caribbean type ride, and the pirates just stand in their waving the sword as you go by looking into space. I mean, imagine if you pulled up in the boat and the pirate was able to sense that it was you, and he would look down and say, hey, Billy, how about a sword fight or something? You know what I mean? In the sense that, they would engage you and know that you're there and know who you are and know what colors you liked, and, all those kind of things. There's a whole world of that kind of, and it gets a little bit, it might get a little creepy, but I think it, when figures and attractions can look you go by a dinosaur somewhere, and he locks eye to eye with you, and he's obviously looking right at you and continues to do so. I mean, there's a lot of stuff that's real simple like that, but it adds to the excitement of it, I believe. And we just like playing with stuff like that.
Yeah, it's interesting, think that there is, and you're involved in it, this whole other world of uses for animatronics outside of entertainment. Like I was interested. It was interesting rather that you did this infantry immersion trainer. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, well, we've done a lot of things for the military, and so it's basically using animatronic characters as kind of role players in a sense in training facilities to where soldiers get trained before they go overseas. And you get a bunch of 18-year-old kids or 20-year-old kids and you hand them guns and you say you're going over to Afghanistan. I mean, they don't know what kind of tricks they pull on people over there, and or maybe some, I'd want to pick out Afghanistan, any country that is an issue. But yeah, we have, and you can shoot. These guys can pull knives on you. Our guys can pull knives on you. They can pull guns. They can actually shoot you. You can shoot them and they will die. They will actually fall down on the ground and die. And you can go up and check, 3 different ways to make sure a person's dead, just like a real person. This one here is a little kid. So this kid, one of the things that when you walk into a village, the kids are always asking for candy, and they always stand up and they're come running at you, they're asking for candy. So we were able to do that. And the kids might have some wires on them and it might indicate there's a bomb, or there's little tricks and things that we would do that are that are all dictated by the government for training to allow the soldiers to have it's kind of like getting off the pirate ride in the Pirates Caribbean, and they're really chasing you around and you're really chasing them around, and they're all trying to you're all trying to get out of there alive.
Wow. So okay. And where is that?
It's unfortunate. I have to say it's unfortunate that we have to do that, but that's a method of putting some things into these kids' head. I can't get into it, but I've seen some things there that are absolutely phenomenal and amazing when we were doing that. Just the way some of the kids reacted and things like that. I mean, they're able to kind of weed out some of them that they don't even send them over there because they can't handle it. And so it literally is the first time I knew of a situation where animatronics were being used to truly save lives.
Yeah.
Wow.
And talk a little bit about the new technology where the faces are more animated, because we know, for example, when the King Kong burned down at Universal, they decided not to build a new animatronic, but to do it in film. Same with Transformers, because you're not getting the cinematic effect that you get with, a slower moving animatronic. So now it seems like by putting the facial features as animation, like you did in Cars Land and with Sebastian, now it feels like the character you saw in the film. So,
well, I might be a little biased. I think animatronics that are live are better than film, but
yeah.
Oh gosh.
But, I think that immersion, the fact that you're kind of in a 3-dimensional environment, and I mean, if you want to see things on TV, even 3D, you can wear glasses at home and look at your 3D TV.
Right.
I mean, you go to a park for immersion, and so we do a lot with human expressive technology. We have an expressive head technology that we've worked on over the years for various projects and continue to work on, and it's been very successful.
Yeah, I think to that point, there's a reason why Pirates of the Caribbean, Haunted Mansion, Small World, why those still maintain their popularity, multiple generations on, because it's grand immersive theater. It's real. I think people know, to your point, they know when they're looking at a screen, and they know when something's projected. But when you're in this real world that I can touch and I can point to, and it's there. I think it has a different effect on you. I mean, again, that idea of the suspension of disbelief. It's hard to suspend that disbelief when you're looking at a screen. I know it's not real, but when it's a physical thing, wow, that's different.
Right. That's true. Hey, remember WDI?
I'm sorry.
No, go on.
I was going to say, isn't it amazing that when you mention those 2 attractions like Pirates and the Haunted Mansion, that they were built back in the 60s, and still today, they're 2 of the best attractions that were ever built in a theme park,
Yeah.
This is part of our expressive head technology here. This is some of our figures that have real high level expression. This particular figure has 42 independent functions in its head.
Wow.
They're like 12 attached to the mouth and lips, and the jaw is fully functional with different directions, and eyes can converge, and he can move his cheeks and crinkle his nose, he can puff his cheeks, he can do his eyebrows. I mean, all kinds of crazy stuff.
Can the voice ever come out of the mouth, or does it always have to be a speaker somewhere else?
Yeah, we hide that really well, but it's not in the head.
Yeah. All right, that's cool. So, Garner, with all these projects you worked on and all these people we've met, it sounds like you've accumulated a little collection of theme park history, probably enough to be a museum at some point. Can you tell us some of the fun things you have in your giant shop that you've put together and collected?
Well, we are planning on having a museum of animatronics someday, and we have tons of stuff for that, but it's all pretty much in mothballs right now. But I do have for the field trips we have coming through here now and then, I do have a ride vehicle collection that that I have out now because they're spread out, but it's been kind of a fun collection. I don't know if you have a shot of that there or not. You have something on that of my train?
No.
No.
Mm-mm.
So we have a full-size locomotive that I've been refurbishing I'm finished now, but I spent a couple of years refurbishing it. It's a big steam locomotive, just like the ones at the Disneyland park, except a lot bigger. And we have we have ride vehicles. We have Space Mountain and Matterhorn and one of the old keel boats. We have Peter Pan. We have a Doom Buggy. We have one of the elephants from Dumbo. We've got Skyway Bucket. We've got Space Mountain car. We've got it's kind of a fun collection.
So Garner, you just mentioned that you have tours, but mostly school groups, which opens up this discussion about your educational programs that you're doing. I think this is a whole side, wonderful part of who you are and what you do that people don't often hear about. Maybe you want to talk a bit about that.
Yeah.
Well, how that all started was, for 25 or so years, I've been taking, kids groups through here, Cub Scouts and, blah, blah, blah. And they'd come through and see the shop, and they'd, Girl Scouts, tours from schools. And, everybody always left here. All these kids would leave here with a smile on their face, kind of like I had when I visited Disneyland the first time. And, I would say, oh, I want to work here someday, and, this and that. And we ended up creating a concept called education through imagination. And so I created another business. It's a business across the street from this building. It's in another building, and we've got about 15 educators over there. And I ran into about 50 kids this morning walking out into the back. I mean, we have school buses pull up, and we do field trips, and they come in and get to program these little figures and things. And now we have programs in schools where this little figure you see on the screen now, that's called Sparky. He's a little figure about 3 foot tall, and kids can, we sell those to schools, and kids can program them. That's a Sparky there. They can talk, and they put faces on them, and they do costumes, and they do shows, and they do backgrounds, and do little shows with them and everything. And they take them apart, and they learn about mechanics and electronics and coding and programming and all of this stuff. We have a curriculum that goes with it, so we can teach these kids about animatronics. So we have what's called you know what a maker space is, right? So we have what's called an animaker space. So we sell these animaker spaces to school. It's like a new shop class idea. And in the shop class, they can build an actual animated tiki bird and, learn all about animatronics and everything. We've got about 14 of them out there right now. We've got a couple all the way as far as Florida, and we actually donated one to Give Kids the World. That's going to open in November. And, but it's kind of a modern day shop class, got laser cutter and 3D printer and CNC machine and a KUKA arm and all these different things that we use here for production. And the kids get to build their own animatronics in this classroom. And so we think the animaker space is going to go really far.
Wow.
Yeah,
I mean,
well-
it's so much bigger than just making a figure. I mean, just all those things you just mentioned about, you know, learning about the CNC cutter, all those mechanical things. And I remember, and we talked a little bit about this, Garner, but you know, in our day, we had shops in junior high and high school.
Yeah,
They
wood
had-
shop, metal shop, car, automotive. I mean, why did those go away?
You know,
Well,
and,
see, if it wasn't for those, I wouldn't be sitting here right now. So
Right.
that's the, you know, I was explaining I didn't go to college or anything, but that's what formed my life were the shop classes in school, welding and metal and wood shop, all of that, electronic shop. They don't have those anymore. So we wanted to create an idea of a new kind of a shop class for schools, and it's going over really well, you know, and kids are really having a great time, and teachers are loving it. And then in addition to that, we started thinking about, well, what about all the kids that can't have an animaker space or don't have an animaker space? So we created the Garner Holt Foundation, which is a foundation, a charitable foundation, 501c3, that we have a lot of great donors to and everything. And we're building a thing over across the street next to ETI called Garner's Garage. And it's going to be a community-based animaker space to where people from the community, kids that are disadvantaged and foster kids and everything else, that can't afford to do anything, they get to come in for free and build an animatronic bird, and they learn how to use all those machines. And the whole focus of the machines is that they learn about 30 different career paths. They get to a sample about 30 different career paths, running a CNC machine or painting a costume or painting a figure or doing hair or doing voiceover work. And they get to experience in a couple of weeks about 30 different career paths. So even at an elementary school age, they start to get introduced to things about what can I do with my life, you know? So we really think that's
Yeah.
important.
wow,
Wow.
Garner, you're changing the world.
Yeah, I mean, that's
really-
amazing.
so significant.
Yeah.
That's fantastic.
Yeah. So quick question, when we're talking about new tech, you know, everybody's talking now about Chat GPT and the software we play with sometimes with creating imagery. What do you think augmented, well, AI, learning, you know, machines is going to do for animatronics? Will we,
Or if it's
or not?
part of it,
Is
yeah.
that, will your secretary sitting in the lobby there be an AI?
Yeah, you know, we haven't done a lot with AI, you know, that's tied to animatronics yet. You know, it's out there. We're interested in that. You know, there's a certain amount of R&D that we continue to do here. You know, we've got so many projects in the house all the time that we just really try to keep up with the work. But you know, that's all part of the future, and that's part of the educational, excuse me, piece of it. And we're gonna, you know, keep forging ahead and you know, working with all aspects of that. That will be something integrated with figures very soon, you know, to where, and that's one of the things we tell these kids in our animaker spaces, and that's kind of one of the reasons for it, is people are going to be working with robots before they know it. I mean, they're coming, and they're going to be all over the place, and they're going to be you're going to be standing next to one working at Burger King, and it's going to, you know, half of it's going to be robotics. So we're thinking that, you know, the kids that we bring in need to understand that, you know, there's a lot of things they can do with that. They need to learn about these things. And the kids that aren't ever going to work with electronics and mechanics, we show them the artistic part of it too. That's the A in STEAM. And so STEM and STEAM education is something that we're really focusing on real hard.
Yeah. So do you think we'll ever actually have a Westworld style theme park with full, you know, animatronics that we can shoot and party with?
Well, I don't know that. Well, it's kind of like the military trainer is kind of like that in a way. It's pretty, it's a pretty weird place. And, you know, you kind of go in there and you don't realize when you realize that the things are lurking around the corner ready to shoot you, you know, they just use like a certain kind of a paintball type thing, but, you know, it gets your attention, you know? So, do you have, I think you have a picture in your file there of, yeah, see, so that's the Westworld film that was done a couple of years ago with Anthony Hopkins and, you know, that whole Westworld series.
Yeah.
They came to my shop. There's Bill Butler in there. So they came to our shop here and said, we want to rent all this stuff. And I said, okay, you can rent it for this much. But then I said, well, it'll be a lot cheaper if you rent it and we get to be in the film. And they said, okay. Yeah. So next thing you know, we were down there getting makeup put on and standing next to Anthony Hopkins, and we were in the film. So it was kind of cool.
So did you advise at all on the show on how to build these things or anything?
A little bit, we tinkered with it a little bit. It was a lot of it's fantasy, but it was kind of fun.
Yeah.
It's all about having fun,
Yeah. Well, one thing I think Joe and I both really appreciate about you is not only the philanthropic side, but that you give people opportunities. And, whether they're just someone off the street who has a passion like you did, or I know you have a story about a janitor who was working in your company for a long time and moved on. Maybe you can tell us a little bit about that.
Well, yeah, Patty. So Patty, our top skin specialist out here, so about 25 years ago, she was part of a cleaning crew that was just a hired cleaning crew, like come in the middle of the night in any building, comes in, carpet, vacuums the carpet, cleans the toilets, and then leaves. And so we had this company working for us for a while, and I'd run into this young lady every once in a while. She barely spoke English, Hispanic lady. And she, always smiled and was always real friendly. And so after we stopped using the service, we changed services, went on to something else. And a couple of weeks later, she showed up in the lobby, and I said, what can I, help you with? Somebody called me out, and she told me, she says, I would do anything to work here. She said, I just love what you do. I don't know anything about this stuff, and anything that I could do that would be, I'll sweep the floors, anything you want, So I said, well, we don't have it. I said, we have entry level plastics, which is very dirty. It's difficult to get, you get itchy. It's smelly. It wrecks your clothes and everything. She says, I don't care. I'll do anything. So we put her in plastics. She worked there for a couple of years in fiberglass. She learned fiberglass really well. Then she advanced to mold making, and we did fiberglass molds. She learned that really well for a couple of years. And then she went on to do silicone and urethane molds. And then she learned matrix molds, and then got better and better and better. And then we put her in the skin shop doing cleanup on skins and doing seaming on skins and everything else. And then she learned to do chemistry and formulation of silicone, and she learned to do coloration and intrinsic coloring and all kinds of other things. And fast forward to today, after about 10 years of skin work, she's considered one of the best in the world at silicone skins, not only by us, but people at Disney have even said she's probably the best in the world at doing what she does.
Wow.
She's a great employee, and it just shows you that, if you're enthusiastic, I mean, you can really kind of tackle anything, and even if you don't know what you're doing,
Yeah. Wow. That's awesome.
That's a fantastic story.
So interesting. So Garner, with all your experience in all these projects and stuff, Joe and I are constantly on the search for the answer to our burning question of what makes an experience timely yet timeless. And what do you think? You just mentioned, Pirates Mansion, those were built 50 years ago, and they're still so relevant today with long queues. What is it that makes an experience timely yet timeless?
In your opinion?
Yeah, in your opinion.
Well, I would kind of hark back to the old days when people like Walt started with a bunch of really brilliant people. And, in those days, I mean, money is always important, but, I mean, so many things get cut today, and you guys know that very well. So many things get downsized and cut, and, I mean, we deal with that all of the time. Nothing is ever seems to be at the level it could be because of budgets and everything else, and everything is expensive. But even budgets aside, even when you have really good writing and really good concepts and really good you bring the art and technology together. I mean, people even back in the 60s, they're looking at Haunted Mansion and Pepper's Ghost. I mean, look at all those tricks they used in there that were simple parlor tricks and magic. I mean, people today say, oh, well, those are all holograms and those were done with lasers. And it's like, no, they weren't. They were done like they did them in the 1800s, you know? So it just shows you if you can do something with, you know, if you're imaginative enough to use, you know, some of the tricks and things and and really put a lot of good effort into, you know, building an amazing thing with good story and good show. You know, it doesn't have to be the biggest, most elaborate, most expensive thing, but you know, it's just interesting to me. I don't know that I know all the answers to that. I mean, you know, we do a lot of the elements for things that people, you know, want us to do, but I think that you know, there is a lot of brilliance out there, and right now everybody's afraid to take risks. And you know, I mean, you know, I don't know. I think that we try to make as much bang for the buck as we can here for the products that we're asked to do. We try to give a little more than people pay for. We had one of our major clients here this morning. We were talking about that, how we always give a little extra and try to make the show as good as we can and as high quality as we possibly can. But you know, I can't really say much more about it without starting to get into what I do and don't like about different attractions. And I don't want to say anything bad about the people who feed us. So.
Well, what do you think about today? Intellectual property seem to be, you know, everyone wants it to be based on a movie or TV show. And some of the greatest things, I think we all agree, were not based on anything. They were based on human life experiences, going to a haunted mansion, going through a jungle, going through outer space. What's your thought on that? Yeah, battling pirates. I mean, what is your thought on that?
Oh, you know, I think there's validity to that and what you're saying. You know, it's true. Everything is IP now. And, you know, every time I see a new movie with a character, I think to myself, well, we'll be building that in a couple of years, you know. You know, you know, that movie, I thought that the other day. I was sitting there watching the trailer to that Megan. I thought, now we'll probably be building some Megan.
I've seen it. It's good.
You know, and that's really funny. And a lot of times I don't even see the movies until, you know, like I didn't see the Cars film until we were building cars, you know, so I don't see a lot of that stuff until it's happening. But yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
You know, there's everything doesn't have to be, you know, it's kind of seems like it's all based around the almighty dollar, because there's so much, you know, it's like nobody wants to build an attraction just based on life experience anymore, because, you know, what's the merchandising? You know, they can't sell the little characters, you know, they can't, you know, it's all about merchandising. It's all about, you know, everybody wearing the, you know, princess outfit from the new movie, you know, so yeah, it's just a different world, you know.
Yeah. You know, Garner, you were talking a moment ago about, you know, the richness of experience, but because of you and your organization, on any given day, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, somewhere around the world, somebody is having a great time, a great moment, and those experiences are richer because of Garner Holt and the amazing work that you and your teams have done, you know, and I experienced it firsthand, what you just said about, you know, always adding something extra, always going further with it. I think that's, among all the other amazing things that you do, I think that's a real hallmark of you. And you look at your philanthropic work and your educational work, I just think it all speaks of this great man that's sitting there.
Big heart.
You know, big heart. And it's changed the world. In your own way, you have changed the world.
Yeah. And you now have a doctorate too, even though you didn't finish high school. We should be calling you Dr. Holt.
Yeah, I guess I will have pretty soon. That's quite an honor. You know, I don't know how they figured that one, but you know, I thought before we got the education thing going, I thought for a long time, I said to myself, you know, I mean, I'll turn 63 this year. And I thought to myself, you know, another 20 years, what am I going to be doing? You know, am I going to be sitting around building tiki birds on the bench or something? I mean, so I thought, you know, when this education thing came about, I thought, you know, this is really a good legacy thing. You know, it's a really good thing to focus on something I can leave behind that I hope can keep growing and help a lot of kids, you know, help a lot of kids turn into adults, and have good work ethics, and
Yeah, it's
And it
wonderful.
will. It
Well,
will.
Garner, thank you so
So
much for
much.
joining us on the Time Machine today.
Well, I'm very happy
We really appreciate it. We hope you enjoed it too.
We had an amazing
Very
ride.
much.
And Joe and I are going to go off and see what you do in the future. And we will see everybody next time.
Okay.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Bye, buddy.
All right, guys. So we hope that you've enjoyed the ride today, and we really, really appreciate our friend Garner Holt for joining us and time traveling with us. If you have questions for Garner, stick around for an off-the-record Q&A in just 60 seconds. On behalf of Zeitgeist Design and Production, we thank you for spending an hour of your day with us on the Spirit of the Time Zoomcast. If you enjoyed the journey, please check out all 21 of our time travel adventures with industry icons on our YouTube channel or under the Zoomcast section at zeitgeist-usa.com. They're also now available as an audio-only podcast wherever you listen. So please plan now to join us on Friday, March 10th, when our time machine passenger will be Oscar-nominated filmmaker, Pepper's Ghost guru, brand experience icon, and TEA Lifetime Achievement recipient, Bob Rogers. May your tomorrow have the nostalgia of the past, the wonder of the present, and the promise of the future. Stay tuned, and we'll be right back.
Get it.